Right now we are going to welcome once again the Port of Gothenburg, the gold sponsor at Donsö Shipping Meet 2023. And they are going to talk about trend scouting future energies. Kristoffer Lillhage and Therese Hjelbrink, they will talk about the energy transition and what key role the Port of Gothenburg will have in the future, as well as the initiatives that are ongoing already now. Both of them, they work in the renewable energy segment with 15 years each of shipping background and will share their thoughts about which are the most attractive fuels right now, which are our biggest concerns, and which or who are the most important enablers. Please welcome, with a big hand, Kristoffer Lillhage and Therese Hjelbrink.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, isn't it great to be at the island of Donsö?
It is.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I love it every time. It's just amazing. And I am Kristoffer, if you wondered who's who, and this is my colleague.
Therese.
So, we are here to talk about the energy transition and what is important for Port of Gothenburg and what we see ahead. And as soon as Therese's mic is on, I'm going to let her start this topic.
Okay. Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah. Super. In order to achieve the fossil-free logistics, we need renewable energy. And both Kristoffer and I, we work in the energy segment of the port. So we deal with this question every day.
Yes, and why is this important, you may ask? And for the Port of Gothenburg, it is important due to the fact that we need to stay competitive. And we need to stay competitive in a very tough landscape. And one of the things we talked about yesterday, because we had the same presentation yesterday, and if anyone were listening yesterday, please raise your hands. Okay, one. And I guess it's either it was super interesting or you have just a little problem remembering, but I hope it was for the first. But we talked about fossil-free logistics. And this is the key for us. We need to be able to provide fossil-free logistics and green solutions to the cargo owners that we want to attract in our port. And in order to do that, we need to have the green fuels available. Because if we don't have the green fuels available in our port, we won't be able to attract the ship owners, to bring their new vessels into our port, and then the cargo owners won't be able to ship their goods out of the port. So that is one of the main reasons. And the other reason is that we also need to transform the energy port. Because today, I'm going to give you a little background first on the energy port. The energy port in Gothenburg is the largest energy port in Scandinavia. We handle around 22 million tons of energy products every year. And the majority of that is fossil still, unfortunately. But we are working to get more green molecules into the port, of course. And we are also a big bunker hub in the region. Between Gothenburg and Skål, we handle around 2 to 3 million tons of bunker fuels. And around 1.7 of that is sourced out of Gothenburg. And we want to stay in that landscape and stay competitive also as a bunker market. Because if we have great products out of our port, we can attract also the ship owners. So this is two reasons. And also the future. What do we have in head? And the trends. And we know for a fact that volumes will decrease. And we need to find the replacement volumes. And we're going to talk more about this. But Therese is going to give you more detail about the prognosis ahead.
And also, in the end of the presentation, we're going to go into more in detail how this all fits together in a landscape where Port of Gothenburg is the renewable energy hub in 2050. This is the prognosis for the Nordics demand of fossil fuels. It's from the Nordic energy agencies. And as you see, it's a really downward going trend into 2050. So maybe in 2050 we will have about 20% of the remaining volume that we see from 2020. what Christopher and I spent quite a lot of time thinking about is the spread. Because we don't know if we're going to see the line going there, that direction, or in a steep downwarding curve. So when planning infrastructure in a port, if we make a decision about building a new quay that's going to last 50 years up to 100 years, we need to put in a lot of flexibility in that planning. And that is really the tricky question. And maybe a little bit more about the infrastructure of the port. You will get to that, but the background of the curve is also, of course, the electrification of the society as large. And in 2050, maybe we will have a hydrogen-based society. We don't really know that yet, but the electrification is here. Some sectors can't electrify easily, like the marine sector, aviation. Liquid green fuels will need to be really important in that transition. And also, we know that this will go down. We know that other products will go up. So that is the really tricky question. Where do those meet? How do we as a port plan for that to make sure that we are here in order to help our customers and partners in the port?
Yeah. And remember that this is a prognosis, and it's really hard to do those prognoses. I know for us Swedes, we have the Swedish National Bank, and they also had a prognosis. It didn't work out very well, so keep that in mind. But we have to start working about these topics we have here, and we try to find the solutions. And the assets we have in the energy port is of course, the most important assets for us. And we have the prerequisites to transform into a new energy fossil-free society, basically, in the future. But we need to use these assets in a smart way. And we need to time the market. Because if we start converting all the assets we have today for the energies of tomorrow, we might end up realizing that we don't get revenue on these assets because the new fossil fuels or fossil-free fuels is not available yet. So we need to time that. But on the other hand, if we don't do anything, we will end up with dead assets. And that's not what we want. So we have to talk to each other. We have to talk to ship owners. We have to talk to producers. We have to talk with tank storage operators. And we need to collaborate about this. And if we do that in the right way, I'm pretty sure we will make this a success, because we have to. We need to start acting today, of course, as well, because we want to leave a planet behind for our future generations, of course. And then we need to start facilitating for these future energies. And that is what we are now trying to solve. We're trying to lay the puzzle. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the slides ahead and how everything is connected. So let's jump into
Bunkers.
The future fuels. And we have a lot of alternatives in the pipeline. And we won't be standing here today telling you what is the best solution, because we can't give you that answer. We can just say that we are working with several solutions. And we need to have all those in our pipeline, because different ship owners will choose different roads. But what is, from our perspective, 4 different fuels that is super relevant. The first one we have on the slide is methanol. The new kid on the block, or the rising star. Everyone is talking about methanol at time being. But we are lucky in Gothenburg because we have handled methanol since 2015 with the conversion of Stena Germanica. And in 2022, we published the first ship-to-ship operations for methanol. And in January this year, we had the first ship-to-ship bunkering operation with Stena Germanica. And we're very proud of that. So we are in a good position now. And we see also that producers start providing the market with green methanol. We will have Ørsted and Liquid Wind Flagship 1 factory in 2025 with 50,000 tons of green molecules. We also have other large producers now producing with biogas. And methanol produced in a renewable way is giving us, on a well-to-wake perspective, quite a good emission profile, up to 95%. So it is a very relevant fuel for the future, of course. And one of the good things is also that you can use the infrastructure that we have today. Almost, you need to do some conversions, but it's still quite easy to handle that.
But methanol is one option,
Yeah.
Christopher. So we need to talk a little bit about the other alternatives.
There are other alternatives, yes.
No, but we have ammonia, of course, coming up, lacking some years behind methanol. What we can do as a port is to prepare the guidelines for ammonia and to align that with IMO, because obviously ammonia has a lot of safety issues that we need to take care of. But also, on the other hand, it does not emit coal. So it's a good candidate from a CO2 perspective, and that's something that we keep a close eye on. And also, ammonia is a great carrier of hydrogen. So in a longer perspective, which we will talk about a little bit later, ammonia can play a huge role to transport energy between continents. So it's a candidate to keep a close eye on. And what we can do right now is with biobunkers. Biobunkers is available right now. It's a drop-in fuel. You don't have to convert the engine. So we want to see more biofuel being used in the port. And obviously, it's a price issue. So even if everyone in the value chain chips in a little bit on the price, there's still a gap in the end. And here we need politicians to come together and to help the industry in order to transform into green fuels. Because in the end of the day, someone needs to pick up the bill.
Yeah, and it is a price gap. There is a quite big price gap, to be honest, for all these alternatives when it comes to green molecules. Methanol, ammonia, when that is available, and of course the last one that I'm going to talk about now, LNG, LBG. LNG has been around for many years, as you know, and now we start talking about liquefied biomethane as an alternative. And that is something that is, of course, for us also super relevant. And LNG is something we have also handled in the port since many years back. We started in 2016 with the first ship-to-ship operation, and today we have handled almost 400 ship-to-ships with bunkering of LNG. And hopefully next year we will have LBG storage in place in Gothenburg, so we can provide these green molecules out of our port. And if you look in the order books now, I think we have 800 vessels on, coming
That's
up with LNG. When it's about methanol, it's around 200. So it is happening now. And in a few years' time, we will see a bigger and bigger demand for these types of fuels. And we should not forget the two other alternatives, electrification, of course. Because we say that if you can electrify, you should do it. It's the best. But it's hard for longer voyages, of course. And the other one, hydrogen, is the same. It's something you can use for shorter voyages, but it's very difficult to use that for long voyages. So, and I'm sure there will also be many other solutions coming into the market in the future. But these are the fuels that we are looking at right now, and we are preparing to be handling them in the port of Gothenburg. And we see there is a rising demand for these fuels as well. And let's talk about the incentives, because this is important. We mentioned the price gap. So for a ship owner going for these fuels, there is a big premium. And yeah, the regulatory framework is now, of course, starting to come in place. From 2024, we will see that for sure. But that will still not be enough to cover the price gap between the fuels and the traditional fuels. So what can we do as a port? Because we need to put skin in the game. We can't just tell the ship owners that you need to do this without walking the talk. So we have put a 20% discount in total on a harbor use for those who can use green fuels. And they need to blend 30% on a yearly consumption. And then they will have this first 10%, and then they already have a 10% on the ESI, CSI index. So hopefully that will help. But to be honest, up until this day, we haven't seen anyone applying for this incentive. So
There's a long way to go.
it's a long way to go, and hopefully next year we can see some ship owners starting now to using these fuel as the EU ETS comes in place. So we have to wait and see, but we need to push, of course, from our side. And then we have the subsidiaries that we also, I think, need to see from the government. Because if we are to kickstart this, really, we need some more support from the government. And we have the green shipping corridors that we are talking about, and Sweden has a sign for that. And hopefully we have some solutions now. We are working with the Port of Ghent and Port of Rotterdam, and we have the vessels basically in place to start doing it already. But now we just need to find incentives for the ship owners. And a little push in that direction would help, of course, very, very much. So that's something we have to push even harder.
And this the last part of the presentation, the ambition is to put everything together. So we talked about the activities that are going on right now and trends for the future when it comes to fuels. So now we will talk about how can this all be linked together in a landscape when the Port of Gothenburg is a renewable energy hub. We have a vision that together with our customers and partners, we maintain the position as the largest energy hub of Scandinavia. And we push the target further, achieving full transition to renewable products. And the next slide will show you how that could look. So it's a vision. These circles can be placed in different locations in 2050 for sure, but it's to show that the Port of Gothenburg has the requisites to become the energy hub. Here out on Risholmen, Statkraft, the Norwegian electricity company, are planning to build an electrolyzer that will produce green hydrogen. We see good potential for storage out in the same location, and that green hydrogen is a really important ingredient going into these fuels that should be produced here. Something that we should not forget is we need more electricity. So we see that we have electricity coming in from wind power, from wave power that is out in the archipelago.
And we need that.
We need that.
We need that.
Yes.
We really need that renewable energy. And the most easy way, I guess, is the wind power. And that would be very much helpful to get the production started in the port, of course.
And then I think biohub and CO2 hub, that's something that you're going to go into
yes,
in
it's
more
also
detail.
connected.
Yeah.
It's also connected because the refineries we have today in Gothenburg, ST1 and Preem and Nynäs, and especially ST1 and Preem are starting now to convert themselves into biorefineries. And for them to meet the emission targets for the future, they need also to start using more green hydrogen or hydrogen in their production. And if we can supply that green hydrogen from our port or from a production site, for example, at Risholmen, that would be very, very helpful. And then when it comes to the bioproducts that they are going to produce, like HVO, for example, the demand for blending in these products into the trucking and the car segments that we normally seen in Sweden with the reduction, it's not going to be the same in the future. So they need to find new markets for these biocomponents. And most likely those markets will be in Europe, and shipping is a new market as well. So I think the refineries are quite confident that they will sell these products, and we as a port see that we will have new markets and new destinations where these products will go. So instead of going out with trucks, they might go out with ships instead. But bio products is of course something very, very relevant for the port. And then we have this CO2 hub, as we call it. And in Sweden, we have a lot of biogenic CO2 from heating plants, for example, where they can produce biogenic CO2. And if we can collect that, that is contributing to the negative emissions and to the national targets, of course, in our emission goals. And if we can collect that and bring that to intermediate storage in our port and then ship it out for end storage, that is something that would contribute with finding these replacement volumes that we talked about. Because if we lose more than 80% of our volumes in the future, we need to find that replacement volumes. Because if we don't find that volume, we will have a hard time financing our own infrastructure. And that infrastructure is needed in order to serve the refineries and the other storage operators that is very much active in our port and will be so for many years ahead, because the fossil products will also be there for many, many years still. So we need this infrastructure, and we need to find ways to finance that infrastructure, and we need to find the replacement volumes. And the CO2 could be up to as much as 8 million tons per year. And if you remember, I said 22 million tons is what we are handling today. So it's almost half the volume. So there is a huge potential there. So that is important. And then you can, of course, use that CO2 as producing fuels, producing methanol, producing aviation fuel. So there are many applications for it. And then finally, we have what we say the bunker hub.
Yeah, and this is to show that everything is linked together. So we need hydrogen hub, bio hub, CO2 hub. When we have all of that, these are all ingredients for the bunker hub. So then those fuels can all be produced in the port of Gothenburg. They will, of course, also be imported. But it's just to give a picture of how a future could look. There will be a need for new products. Fossil will go out, new products will come in. And the energy port will look different in the future, for sure. But both Christopher and I, we're here for the rest of the day and tomorrow to talk about this. If you have any more questions or would like to discuss, because this is nothing that the Port of Gothenburg do on our own. This we do together, and we're merely here as a facilitator of the transformation.
Yeah, and I really want to emphasize that this is a collaboration. It's a collaboration between the full value chains, because it's only the weakest link that will stopping this from happening. So we need to make sure that everything is in place, and that's from the ship owners, the producers, the bunker operators, and the cargo owners to the port as a facilitator. So, yeah, please, when you see us during the day, let us answer your questions if you have any. So, thank you for listening.
Be heard. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Christopher and Therese. You told us about the weakest link. What would you say is the weakest link right now?
I think, to be honest, it is the demand for these fuels. I think if the demand is not in place, it is very hard for all the other partners in this to actually go forward, because they can't go too fast, because then they will miss out on revenues. And it's I mean, it's a shame to say that it's about money, but it is, because you need to finance your own business.
I would say that. You say it's the demand is the issue, but it's also the willingness to pay.
Yeah.
Yes. What about that? What is the shipping industry willing to pay for the green shipping?
Actually, for the first time, we had a bunker conference in May, where we invited a lot of people from the bunker sector. And then the Swedish Environmental Institute, they do a research every year. And for the first time, they could see that now actually people are willing to pay for green transport to save the Scope 3 emissions. So there's a great trend. And this is for Swedish companies. We will hope it will spread to the rest of the world. But it's going in the right direction, yeah.
So, last question. What do you think the Port of Gothenburg plays? What role does it play in this global collaboration in this?
Well, you are into something there because it is a global cooperation. We shouldn't invent the wheel every time. So if we can talk to other ports and to help each other out, we should do that. But our main role here is to act as the facilitator, to bring all these parties together and to be able to give them their prerequisites in order to do what they need to do. And then we also need to push.